I still consider him the same way. So I guess I'm a bit cocky, and I don't mind that. I haven't changed my mind about playing a series against him.
Congrats on that win. Probably not as clean as you'd like, but a win is a win.
Oh, no such thing. No such thing for me. I don't know. I just, I'm a simple man. I like to go on stage, and when I walk off, like I like to go on stage. That's the first step. I enjoy it. I really do. I make the most out of it every time. But there's one thing I promise myself when I walk off of it, and I promise myself that as I'm walking on, is that when I do walk off, I don't have regrets. And this is a series I don't regret. I have no regrets. I did everything I could, and sometimes that looks really ugly, and sometimes people think that you're crazy, but that's who I am.
Well,
That is what I am.
It looked quite ugly game 2. And more than the gameplay, I want to ask about the pick Volibear into that composition. ThinkGuard said in the coach interview that they do during the game that they were kind of expecting that. They've actually scrimmed you guys and played that game a lot, and it's very volatile.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific reason you're pulling out Volibear when we've seen other answers like Cassante, for example?
Because I think he's good there. And I just had a misunderstanding, I think, with the rest of my team, where I just want to farm and scale that game, and I'm convinced I'll have a strong game. But of course, so be it. How many people do you think? How many people have you asked if Renekton scales, and their answer was yes?
None.
Yeah, well, I think he scales pretty well if you know what you're doing. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say game 4 you played Renekton, and I felt like once you got items and actual in team fights, you were doing a lot with that Renekton. A lot more than my Renekton.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way, the perception of the game, I think at the end of the day, it's important to recognize that I've spoke about this before, but I think that every single champion can find success in any moment of the game if you know the angles to find it, right? Like a one-trick player will know how to use a mid-game, like in mid-game will know how to make use out of a champion that's, traditionally weak in mid-game. They're going to know how to kind of avoid that spike or avoid that power dip in this case. And I think that I do a good job of that with Renekton. And at the same time, I think I'm patient and wait for good opportunities because I don't feel the stress to go in and force fights because I don't think my champion scales poorly. So I do think he needs gold to scale well. And that's just how I see him. I've had this with every single Bruiser I play in the history of my career. Volibear is one of them, and a lot of people in 2020 loved watching me play Volibear because everyone was like, oh, he's just an early game lane bully and he sucks later in the game. And then I showed up with my Trinity Force Death Stance build, and I was not dying. I was not a weak champion mid and late game. So I think creativity is the name of the game when it comes to Bruisers. I think a lot of champions, especially like Volibear, this guy can start 7 different items and they're all viable. And it's a beautiful thing. I love that about the bear. But again, you do need money on him in order to be successful. And I think that that's where the disconnect between me and my team kind of happened, where I ended up fighting a 2v2 I didn't really want to, and I wasn't clear that I didn't want to do that. And in general, in the rest of the game, I do think he does need some resources.
With different, I guess, champions, when you're playing Nautilus top and when you're playing Volibear, when you're playing Darius versus when you're playing Cassante or Ornn, they're sort of not the same theme. You're doing different things in the game, and that can make it difficult, aligning or learning the different play styles of different champions as a team and how you want to play. We heard some of the voice comms during game 4 where, Inspired was telling Busio, hey, you need to go first or else, what happened. How do you as a team, practice for so many different scenarios, especially when you're picking all these different picks and we're seeing the Nyla and the Nautilus?
I usually stick to champions that have a similar theme. So even though obviously I play Bruisers and tanks, and I'm very diverse in which Bruisers and tanks, they're still Bruisers and tanks. Whether I'm playing Cassante and standing in front of you and pressing W, or I'm hooking someone with Nautilus, you shouldn't notice a large difference as the guy behind me, if that makes sense. That's how I see it, right? And same with I'm playing Renekton or Volibear or Darius. I'm probably not going to be frontlining, trying to be the guy that goes in first. I'm going to be going in second. I'm going to follow up, or I'm going to pick a fight with someone that's weaker than me at the start of the fight and kind of lure them in to come and hit me and bait them. So that's kind of the idea for the most part. I usually pick champions that fulfill a certain amount of, fulfill the certain role in a team fight. And then I go from there. I always ask myself, what champion can do the same job but has more upside, potentially early game, potentially later in the game, and then weigh, is that better for the draft or not? So, for example, Volibear will obviously be weaker late game than, say, a Cassante, but Volibear has the advantage of having priority on Renekton. So you can actually leverage that in order to get a better position for grubs. Maybe you can help your mid laner, etc., etc. You have options. If you lock in Cassante or Ornn there, you are under your tower. Your mid lane is under, you know what I mean. You're under your tower, full stop. Renekton's pushing in the whole game. They can do anything they want, and that is an option you can choose to take if you'd like. Again, I don't want to delve too much into why and what we do what we do, but I consider all of these things when I pick my champion. And I think sometimes, for example, today, I think in that particular game, I didn't feel confident that we would win 2v2. And I should have addressed that and said, we can't play for the 2v2 top here because we are going to lose. So, in that case, I would rather just farm up and scale a bit, because I do think with items, like the first item, you are stronger, but like every single item you get more. As long as you're not falling behind, you're going to just keep getting stronger than Renekton. And I think that's a big reason why I had a lot of success in 2020, because everyone else was playing this Black Cleaver Iceborne Gauntlet build on Volibear, which is like spiking on 1 and 2 items. Whereas I went items that were much more expensive, but at the same time, they scaled much, much better. So I ended up having builds that scaled ridiculously well, because I'd had so much money. Same thing in 2021 when I was playing him. It was 2020. No, it was 2021 spring. Yeah, 2021 spring, I think. I believe so. I was playing Volibear top with our Gargoyle Stoneplate. Yeah, that was what I was doing. Same thing. Same idea. I would farm for 3 items as Volibear, and everyone would look at me like I'm crazy, because it's like, what? Like, are you a carry? Are you an AD carry or a mage? No, I'm not. I'm a good old-fashioned bruiser, and I farm till 3 items. I'll see you in the late game. You will see how overpowered I can be if you let me get there. And I ended up team fighting some great team fights in that spring, even though the results weren't what we wanted. I feel like I had a really good meta read. Renekton actually that's when I started thinking Renekton scaled really well. It's because Starax got reintroduced to the game, and you could go Starax into Stoneplate. And that's the same logic I use today. I go a health item that's AD, either Stridebreaker or Cleaver. And then I go Starax Gauge. And then if you are able to get gold from the fact that you're spiked really hard, you can transition your build into a tank build by grabbing Random Zoman against double crit carries. Or you can grab Jackshow, or you can grab, basically just tank items. And suddenly you have so much effective health from your Dominus, from your Starax, from the healing from Q, that it's like hard to really argue that you're not a tank, Like, how much effective health do you think I have after Random Zoman calculations with their carries hitting me in this last game I played? I don't know, bro. It's probably like almost 10,000, like 10, 11,000. And you're looking at those numbers and you're like, is this really a character that can like almost like one-shot your carries? Like, because I can one-shot okay, but I can put them to like 40% health with my own combo. And it's also a stun, so there's follow-up opportunity. And I come to the conclusion that like that can't be bad, right? In the middle late game stages, so that's why I do it. And I think on Darius I did Starax Gauge. Obviously Darius is more recognized as a team fighter because of the potential upside he has. But the fundamental build and the rule set that I use still exists there. And it's really funny to me that there's very few people that can use bruisers like this, because I think they just don't have the mindset. Also, maybe they're just not that good at them, because you still need to play them really well. Like, you do need to find the angles. It's not as simple as playing Ornn and calling the horn.
So I do have a question regarding what you're saying. When I was playing like in a rec league in basketball, and we were trying to get like a different strategy or to like counter a specific team, we we practice internally, and no one sees that. But for you, people are watching your solo queue. People are watching like your scrims, obviously. So let's say a new champion or like Starax gets reintroduced to the game, and you're going through these calculations in your head or like gameplay, and you're trying to decide, hey, I think I can play this. How do you hide that from people? Like, you're going to face Cloud9. How do you surprise them without actually scrimming it? How does that work in League?
I think for the most part, there's no such thing as really hiding picks. You can hide like a pocket pick or a spicy pick or something, but for the most part, like, you just clash styles. I'll give you an example of a champion that I think Gen G plays it very often, actually. Hasn't really seen much play outside of Gen G. I think Damwon also played it, but it's Gangplank. Gangplank is a great example of this, where if you know how to get to the mid game without suffering too much, he's an excellent champion. Same with Ornn, same with Cassante, right? And usually when one opts into something other than the meta, it is because he believes that the other side is better. And that's kind of where it doesn't matter where you hide it or not. That's what I think is why it doesn't matter. Like, I have a preference for a certain champion with a certain build, let's say, right? And the person playing against me has to agree with that notion, right? Before he starts practicing it. So there's 2 steps. First, you have to agree, oh, this is the best way to win. And the second is I have to practice that best way to win, or at least like know how to play the champion in the lane so I can be successful later in the game. And here comes, like, for example, I haven't played a single NAR game, right? I actually have 1 NAR game my whole career. And I just don't believe in NAR. I just simply don't. And I've explained this a million times to my teams and why. And I give really good reasons and options in draft on how I think I should beat him. And that's what I do. I'd actually be super curious to know what my win rate against NAR is, because I'm pretty sure it's pretty fucking high.
You play Ornn a lot into it, so I'm sure it must be.
Yeah, I mean, what makes you say that? Because a lot of people consider that to be a good NAR matchup. You know,
well, because you have a really good win rate on Ornn.
Fair enough. Maybe I'm farming NARs. Maybe that's why. Maybe, you know, who knows? Maybe I'm not. I'm actually curious. I'd love to know the stat, but that's the idea, you know. That's why, like, I don't really care if you agree with me or not. Like, I'm willing to play matchups no one else is willing to play, because I have a different vision on the game. Because I feel like as long as I can navigate certain difficult aspects of the game, my champion is going to provide more value than my opponents. And I think at the end of the day, fundamentally, when you're playing a team sport, if you can outperform your direct counterpart, that should be the goal you're trying to achieve.
All right, well, you're going to be facing against Luxury Fake God, I think is what you called Thanatos. Premium, yes, there we go. Premium Thanatos, Fake God. Yeah, maybe some words for the FlyQuest fans who are hoping that you guys can upset C9?
I don't know. I wouldn't really call it an upset. We lost 2-0, but I think the games are pretty winnable as far as I remember. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, I feel like they were pretty winnable. Anyway, yeah, it's going to be, I hope it's going to be an exciting series. And, you know, I guess I haven't changed. I still consider him the same way, so I guess I'm a bit cocky, and I don't mind that. I haven't changed my mind about, you know, playing a series against him, but we'll see. Maybe the next series will change my mind. I'm happy for him if it does. Either way, I really want to make it to Worlds, and C9 is a worthy opponent. Regardless of what I think of their top laner individually, I don't think it really matters. He plays League of Legends well. And like, by the way, like, a lot of people think that was like an insult. Actually, I think Fake God's not bad, so I don't know what to say. I don't know what to tell you. I think that guy works hard and he plays the meta matchups really well, and that's about it. I think they have that in common.
All right, well...
Once you throw him off, he doesn't come back, and that's going to be my plan. I'm going to throw him off. We'll see if it works.
Good luck. Now, that was a fun interview, just going back and forth with Bwipo and about certain things. It was cool to see how he thinks of himself. I feel like he's changed. Like, I've watched his interviews since 2018. He's definitely changed as a personality. Even just from last split, like, the way he talks is a little bit different. It seems like he's a little bit more introspective. And, yeah, apparently Renekton scales.